G'day guys and gal, there are a few fictional characters more interesting than the Emperor, a man who declared that the galaxy's fate was cringe and that he alone would change it, in his hubris not realizing that he helped guide it into its grimdark fate, a man who wished for nothing more than to be a cold calculating bastard, the tyrant so that mankind may be free, but who could also never truly shake off his own humanity. I could suck the Big E's golden schlong all day, but we aren't here to talk about his conflicted personality, we're here to talk about his ultimate ambition and goal. Sure, it's clear he wanted to beat chaos, but I want to get beaten off by Anna Diarmas. I can't just say something and then it'll happen. So I thought let's take time today to dive into the deep nitty gritty of the Emperor's plan, including the many contingencies he created in case things went tits up. And yes, things definitely went tits up. Before we get started, I have a fetish for innovation and no one quite states that fetish than Manscaped. We all know their lawnmower range, shaves that destroy hair without destroying your dangly bits, as well as their various other devices like the Handyman, or hygiene products like their great smelling body washes. But the star of today's partnership is the new Chairman Pro Electric Foil Shaver, the ultimate versatile tool for keeping your face fresh and your neckbeard destroyed. If the lawnmower is for your family jewels and the Handyman is a great all-round travel companion, the Chairman Pro is the face specialist. It has the 4-blade foil for a clean close shave, as well as the stubble trimmer for when you want to clean up your beard but keep it intact. I personally use the stubble trimmer for my face and the 4-blade foil for my neck. Both attachments come with Manscaped's signature skin-safe technology, which massively reduces the chances of cuts, razor burns and irritation. The Chairman Pro is a new staple tool to use in your hygiene and grooming journey. Nobody likes a neckbeard, so to get the Chairman Pro or any of Manscaped's products for 20% off and free international shipping, then use my link below. Cheers to Manscaped for sponsoring this video. Today we'll go over the Emperor's ultimate plan and goal, detailing the things he did to achieve it, what went wrong, and what his contingencies actually were. Let's get into it. The Emperor was well aware of chaos and its threat to humanity early on in his life. His foresight was legendary, and although it didn't give him a clear and easy path forward, it did show him countless futures full of darkness and death at the hands of chaos. It wasn't super obvious what this looked like yet though, but the Emperor knew it was bad. To explain further, if you can see all the potential futures that lead you to tomorrow based on many different decisions you could make, you would quickly be overwhelmed and exhausted. As in only a single day, you can have near countless different experiences based on what you do. Now times that by millions of days, and even the Emperor struggled to be able to keep up with all those predictions and paths in his mind. The Emperor was exposed to chaos early, as there was some chaotic presence on Terra during the early years, with the Tower of Babylon being a chaos corrupted tower that the Emperor conquered. So the Emperor had established himself as the enemy of chaos early on. Basically, the Emperor wanted to spend as much time as possible accumulating the power and knowledge required to take on chaos when the opportunity would arise. To this end, he conquered the Tower of Babylon as stated, and wanted to actually read through its knowledge, despite it being corrupted. His friend and warmaster at the time, Alanis Person, disagreed with this notion of learning corrupted knowledge, and he destroyed the tower instead. The Emperor also set in motion various other events, such as defeating and imprisoning the Void Dragon Shard and putting it under Mars, the journey to Molech in order to gain the knowledge and power needed for the Primarch project, the creation of his secret laboratories within the Himalayan mountains, all of this happening under mankind's nose as it was entering its technological golden age and spread out through the stars. The Emperor just kind of ignored this period of mankind's technological explosion. He took various pieces of technology that he liked, learned a bunch of cool science, but for the most part, he stayed in the shadows and focused on his own plans. He foresaw the Age of Strife and the birth of Slaanesh. He knew that no matter what he did, the Age of Strife would occur as the Elder Empire was too powerful for humanity to stop. Like the two factions did actually fight in the lore and the Eldar won. Slaanesh was always going to be born, so why risk himself and try to lead an empire that had a clear expiration date, where instead he could gain more knowledge and wait for a better opportunity to strike out. There was also the very real chance that if the Emperor revealed himself to the Dark Age of Technology humans, they would reject him and kill or imprison him, as they had the weapons and tech to be able to do so. The Emperor saw the fall of the Eldar and knew mankind needed to avoid a similar fate. Mankind was ascending to become a psychic race, slowly but surely, and if left to their own devices would become prey for demons and eventually birth a new Chaos God. The only way for mankind to truly be safe was for them to be cut off from chaos or for chaos to be defeated. As the Emperor continues his plans, the Men of Iron, mankind's hyper-advanced AI, revolt, costing humanity most of its strength and technology to destroy. Any hopes of rebuilding are then crushed by the galaxy-wide warp storms appearing due to the Eldar's fall into debauchery, and the upcoming birth of Slaanesh. Terra itself falls into civil war and anarchy, with one of the only planets weathering the storm being Mars, who managed to use calculations and science to predict gaps in the warp storms and send out numerous colonization fleets that establish various forge worlds across the sundered galaxy. During all these years, the Emperor had created his incorruptible custodian guard, he had taken the power and knowledge needed from the warp to create the Primarchs, which was actually the action that initially attracted the Chaos God's attention to him. He had prepared the Space Marine legions for creation, and he had butted up Mars to join him. So far, everything had gone to plan except one thing. The Primarchs were never actually meant to be his generals. It was actually supposed to be the other Perpetuals, as they were wise, didn't have ego or daddy issues, and were completely incorruptible. However, nearly all of them abandoned the Emperor as they were put off by his immense ambition and plan to dominate the galaxy. So the Primarchs were the contingency. It's unclear if that also makes the Space Marines a contingency, as the Space Marines required the Primarchs to exist. Perhaps the Emperor was going to use the DNA from his perpetual leaders to make legions of Custodian Guard. Or perhaps the Primarchs were supposed to have a more reduced role, but that is neither here nor there. Tragically, the contingency of using the Primarchs instead of the Perpetuals was the first and most significant hole in the Emperor's plan, as the Primarchs would be the ones that inevitably ruined everything. Another apparent setback in the plan was Erdar allowing the Chaos Gods to scatter the Primarchs through the warp, but the Emperor really didn't seem too bothered by this and almost made it out like it was part of his plan. After all, most Primarchs seem to have unlocked most of their potential due to growing up on their own worlds, as opposed to being straightened out and groomed by the Emperor and Malcador directly. Leman Russ wouldn't be the Lord of Winter and War if he was a Terran general. What would Ferris be if he didn't grow up fighting the monsters of Medusa? And so on. When Slaanesh was finally born, her birth blew out all the warp storms and made warp travel possible again. As most human worlds were still reeling from the Age of Strife, the Emperor struck out into the galaxy with his legions and with the aid of Mars, due to most of Mars believing him to be their prophesied Jesus, their Omnissiah, which he actually may technically have been depending how you look at it. If his plan had phases, the Great Crusade would have been phase 2, with phase 1 being the gathering of all knowledge, power and technology required to launch the Great Crusade. So the galaxy was still brimming with threats, most of them unrelated to chaos. Chaos itself was only just also starting to do shit again, since the Eldar gods had been the supreme pantheon of the warp for millions of years, so it was more or less a race. The Emperor needed to remove all significant threats in the galaxy so that he could move into phase 3. If he just stayed on Terra working on phase 3, it would only take a few decades or centuries before an overwhelming hostile Xeno race arrived, or worse, another human civilization. There were many powerful human civilizations that had the power to reconquer the galaxy given enough time. Some were full of Dark Age of technology weapons, so the Emperor had to crush the Orc empires, reclaim his Primarch sons, who were now essential in his plan in phase 3, defeat the Rungdung Empire, who were the most powerful Xenos in the galaxy at the time, and more or less conquer the galaxy to allow him to exclusively focus on phase 3. And the Mad Lad did it. Phase 2 was a resounding success. Almost all of the Primarchs were recovered, and only a few of them had clear problematic issues. The Emperor knew that Chaos had recovered and were about to begin their own moves, so he decided it was time to move into phase 3 after the triumph of Ulanor, where the last great Xeno threat in the galaxy was crushed. He left Horus and the Primarchs in charge of mopping up the rest of the galaxy and continuing the Great Crusade, which would actually end up being the greatest of his mistakes. See, phase 3 was the Emperor acting directly against the Chaos Gods. He wanted to remove mankind's reliance on the warp, thus reduce Chaos's chance to corrupt humanity. Currently, humanity had to travel faster than light via cutting holes in the warp and using the warp as a shortcut through the galaxy. Every trip carried the risk of a ship being lost, or worse, something from the warp coming back into real space with the ship. But if the Emperor could find an alternative to warp travel, whilst also creating a safe haven for mankind's growing psychic population, it would keep Chaos from feeding on mankind's psyches and even keep them away from mankind's ships. This would greatly weaken Chaos, as its food source would be reduced, especially since the galaxy was entering a state of order, peace and calm, three things anathema to Chaos. This alternative to the warp was the Eldar Webway. The Emperor wished to breach it and then subvert sections of it for human use. The Golden Throne would be the device used to breach it and stabilize the breaches, whilst a secondary throne, called Dark Glass, was discovered out in the galaxy. It was thought that by using both thrones in tandem, the Webway could be breached at will and easily used by mankind. Thus the Emperor left the Great Crusade and began working on the human Webway. The primary plan was that after a certain amount of progress had been made, Magnus would sit upon Dark Glass, with the Emperor sitting upon the Golden Throne. This would give mankind the power to permanently settle the Webway and use it to travel around the galaxy without the warp, whilst also building various cities in it to house mankind's psychic population. If Dark Glass was to fail, the contingency would be Magnus sitting upon the Golden Throne, so the Emperor would have more freedom to move around and aid the project in other ways. Now here's where stuff falls apart. A lot of what caused the heresy was mistrust towards the Emperor. Many traitor Primarchs believed the Emperor had abandoned them to work on a secret project to ascend himself to godhood, making himself appear as a selfish, lying hypocrite. The Emperor didn't tell anyone about the Webway project because A, he didn't want Chaos to know, and B, he didn't want the Navigator houses to know, as if the warp was no longer the main source of travel, the Navigators would be obsolete and lose their status and power. The Emperor had one of those just fucking do what I fucking tell you kind of attitudes to the Primarchs, which unfortunately isn't the best way to handle a bunch of egomaniac demigod man-children. children. Chaos exploited these mistakes by the Emperor and managed to manipulate Magnus into breaching the Emperor's Webway, permanently damaging it. Dark Glass was also destroyed during the Heresy by an agent of the Navigator houses. Thus, Phase 3 went to shit, as the Emperor desperately tried to salvage the project, losing most of his Custodian Guard in the process. Phase 3 would then deteriorate further and permanently fail when his forces were driven out of the Webway completely and he was forced to shut it down. Making it even worse, Magnus became a Demon Prince of Tzeentch after rejecting the Emperor's offer of redemption, disqualifying him from ever sitting on the Golden Throne, thus forcing the Emperor to stay on the Golden Throne for nearly the entire Heresy, as he had to keep the Astronomicon lit and the Webway gate sealed. The plan had officially failed. Now all there was to do was fight and try and make Chaos pay. To this end, the Emperor activated the Dark King contingency. If he ascended to become the 5th Chaos God, the Dark King, he would easily kill Horus and crush the Chaos Gods. However, in the process, he would also destroy the galaxy. I believe in his hubris he believed he could control this form or something, but he just definitely couldn't. Fortunately, he was talked out of following this path by his friends. The Emperor then fights Horus and slays him, taking many mortal wounds in the process. He's interred in the Golden Throne with no real plan, just to rage against fate and chaos until his mighty fire is eventually snuffed out. There was, however, 4 more contingencies around this time I want to discuss. As Phase 3 began to fail, the Emperor worked with Malcador to try salvage mankind's future. First, he got Vulcan to create the Talisman of 7 Hammers, a device that would destroy Terra if Chaos was to win, killing all demons and traitors on Terra, including their Primarchs, thus creating a no-winner situation. The second contingency was the creation of the Grey Knights, Space Marine demon hunters who would have the power to banish demon Primarchs and other threats in the galaxy without the Emperor or other loyalist Primarchs around. And finally, the Terminus Decree, a virus that would kill all Space Marines in the galaxy. Basically, the Emperor said, there is no victory for Chaos, only mutual destruction. The fourth and coolest contingency was Constantine Valdor, Captain General of the Custodian Guard. After the Heresy, Valdor vanished. However, he has seemingly appeared once again as the King in Yellow, a mysterious figure who controls a pocket dimension in the warp full of turbocharged clone blanks, custodians, and winged blood angels. It seems like he is trying to find the Emperor's true name, although for what purpose it is not yet clear. Funnily enough, although the Emperor's final plan was no plan at all, more so just stay in a state of constant pain to keep mankind alive, the opening of the Great Rift may have given him a chance. With all the warp energy flooding the galaxy, the Emperor has become greatly empowered and can bring his shattered consciousness together. After all, he literally set Nurgle on fire recently. I really feel like the Emperor does his best work when he just wings it. Lighting a Chaos God on fire to prove a point is metal as fuck. So overall, the Emperor's ultimate goal and ambition failed, but that golden sack of bones don't hear no bell. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then join Dice Dioramas, my new membership platform where we just gave away an Imperial Knight to one of our members and are giving away an epic Angron vs Lion diorama in a couple weeks. Join the Discord for more memes and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.